Round 10 at Gaildorf in southern Germany, down near Stuttgart, brings even worse misfortune for an absolutely distraught Mickael PICHON. A slow speed accident during free training on Sunday morning destroys the ligaments in his knee. And Mickael PICHON is stretchered off, his season at an end. It will be 6 months before he's back on a motorcycle, and that means that Stefan EVERTS now only has Joel SMETS to contend with in his quest for a 7th World Championship crown. Once again, he has won the 125cc Grand Prix this morning. He's then taken a break, taken a breather. Well, not your idea or my idea of a breather. He spends it on his stationary exercise bike, cycling and keeping his muscles warm. Joel SMETS beat Stefan EVERTS in the Open Class Grand Prix here at Gaildorf last year. Can he do it again? And at the home track of the great pit buyer, Brian JORGENSON, amongst others, remembers the pit bull. The Dane, fourth in the championship, no chance of catching Mickael PICHON despite PICHON being out of the race. And PICHON, of course, was on pole position. He was riding his 2002 Suzuki and a lot happier to be back on that bike. But unfortunately, he made the mistake, he suffered the accident, he paid the consequences. This is the first turn, Gaildorf, they're everywhere. What a mess. But Stefan EVERTS magically emerges once again at the front of the well-watered German track. Behind him, Brian JORGENSON. Claudio Federici, Mickael PICHON on the two Yamahas. Number 25, the German-based Kurt Scazzoli Yamaha of Frenchman Johnny Aubert. And finally, a couple of guys unload down on those awkward cambers. Leap back aboard and see if you can get back in the race. At least you know you've got the next 35 minutes to do something about it. Joel SMETS. Two Yamahas ahead of him, neither of them Stefan EVERTS, because EVERTS is clear at the front. Yamaha leads Honda. The two Yamahas are Federici and PICHON. The KTM of Joel SMETS, number 3. And unusually, the Suzukis do not belong to Mickael PICHON, who's going straight home to France for treatment to that knee injury. And it's Kevin Strybos, the Suzuki, in 6th place. Stefan EVERTS leads. 2nd, JORGENSON. 3rd, Federici. 4th, PICHON. 5th, Joel SMETS. But for how long? As he tracks across that wonderful adverse camber straightaway at the top of this fabulous Gaildorf circuit that hosted the first ever major change to the Motocross des Nations when we had all the 125, 250 and open class machines together back in 1985. 60 riders on the start line. It was an astonishing sight, an astonishing day. SMETS trying to find a way past Mickael PICHON, but PICHON is on the case this time around, fending off Joel and the KTM. Strybos 6th, Christophe Martin Suzuki 7th, 8th Kadlecek, 9th another Frenchman, Vincent Turpin, 10th Yoshia Tsuda. How consistent has he been in that position, ahead of McFarlane, Pirinen, Gunderson and Soronval. So the French warriors trying to make up for Mickael PICHON's absence. Josh Coppins back down in 27th place, not where he wanted to be. Claudio Federici side by side with Mickael PICHON, but PICHON has to give way. The Roman Emperor's become a lot stronger, certainly mentally, since his comeback. Perhaps the layoff did him good. Snarling round this hillside circuit at Gaildorf near Stuttgart, underneath the Red Bull arch. The battle for 3rd place is on. Federici, PICHON, Joel SMETS. Claudio Federici, first Grand Prix in Italy in 1994, and then in 1995 at Castiglione del Lago he won his first 125cc motocross Grand Prix. Joel SMETS this time makes the pass across the adverse camber. Mickael PICHON tries to respond, it's narrow there. He tries to squeeze a way through, but SMETS isn't having it. He just sticks his elbows out a bit higher, a bit wider, fills the track and forces the pace. Next up, Claudio Federici. These fabulous inclines here round Gaildorf. First host of the Grand Prix in 1976 when Vladimir Kavinov won for Russia and KTM. Look at the battle going on here, right round the outside. How sweet was that? Joel SMETS just wound open the throttle and slingshot round the outside of number 111, Claudio Federici. The 500cc Grand Prix here in 1980 was won by Belgium's André Vromans on a Yamaha. And in 1994, who will ever forget that first 250 Grand Prix victory for the current competition's boss at KTM, this man's boss, Kurt Nickel, then racing for Castrol Honda. 1997, there was a victory here for Pit Byra. Very good. That's a good way of putting it. Very good. But unfortunately, he's still 8.9 seconds behind the leader, Stefan EVERTS, and 5 seconds behind the second place, Brian JORGENSON. A lot of work to do then. Federici, Pavlovs and Strybos fill the next 3 places. Stefan EVERTS, a winner here at Gaildorf in 1999 on his 250cc Honda. He loves the place. Brian JORGENSON. Can Yogi make any impression here? I don't think he can make any impression on the leader, but certainly he could perhaps hold on to this second place despite the onslaught of Joel SMETS. This is just one of the finest settings for a motocross Grand Prix circuit. Beautiful place. Always a large, enthusiastic and knowledgeable crowd. Pit Byra arrived here with a tiny advantage in the 1999 World Championship, and everything went pear-shaped in front of his home crowd, and they had nothing but sympathy and support for the gallant German that day. Stefan EVERTS needs no one's sympathy, nor really any support. He's just enjoying himself at the front, and Joel SMETS will see that 10-point deficit in the World Championship widen at the end of the day. So despite being victorious here in 2002, the KTM team know only too well that SMETS is not going to get the better of EVERTS today. Indeed, can he get the better of Brian JORGENSON? The gap is down to 3.6 seconds. Jorgi hanging on across the huge jumps past the finishing line. The dust beginning to rise. It's a baking hot day despite all the watering. The hard-packed blue groove of Gaildorf is back again. Fastest lap on lap 7, Stefan EVERTS, 1 minute 49.92. A remarkable 55 km/h average speed. Looking neat, tidy, just switching and flicking that Yamaha as if it were a toy from side to side through the tight turns. Stefan EVERTS in search of his 67th Grand Prix victory. And right now, who would bet against it? And of course, that 7th world title. He set his heart on it when he was a kid. Spent his youth, of course, on the Grand Prix circuits with his dad. Andrew McFarlane on the Yanda Groot. Motor X Kawasaki finds that he's got some pretty bothersome company. It's his teammate, Kenneth Gunderson, right there on his back wheel in a battle for 8th place. Gunderson gets alongside the Australian. But McFarlane, whose victory at Fox Hill in the KWS International Series last year proved how good he is on this very slippery hard-pack stuff, hangs on to that 8th place, keeps the inside line from his high-flying teammate. But not for long. Gunderson storms through on the inside of the 25-year-old Aussie, snatches 8th place. Makes it his own. Meanwhile, the battle for 2nd place. The Italian flags are out. Well, perhaps it's for the Italian Martin Honda of Dane Brian JORGENSON, because he's coming under pressure now from Belgium's Joel SMETS. SMETS has hauled in the 3-second deficit and is now, well, it's certainly closer than 1.7 seconds. Whoever's operating our clock, that's more like it. 0.5 of a second between them as they cross the line. Joel needs the points. He needs that second place. He's got 14 minutes plus 2 laps to do something about it. The bank turns, the adverse cambers. It's a huge mixture of technical bits and pieces, this track. And on one of those technical bits and pieces, Joel SMETS has to find a way past Brian JORGENSON. Yogi versus the Flemish Lion. They're ahead of Federici, Bervolts, Kevin Strybos. 12 seconds behind the outright leader, Stefan EVERTS. Christoph Martin, a great ride by him. Definitely a career best in 7th place. 3 seconds ahead of Kenneth Gunderson. Can he hold on to that? Johnny Aubert 10th. And James Dobb nursing his injured arm from Holland as we lose Joel SMETS. Is that SMETS? SMETS slides to earth as he tries to get underneath the obstructive Brian JORGENSON. Doesn't make it. He's back where he started from. And this was the moment. Joel dropping down, and that's what I mean about mean cambers. There's some nasty little adverse cambers round here, and he just tried to tuck it in a bit too tight. The back wheel got away from him. He low-sided down, and it could leave Brian JORGENSON to get what will be for him a thrilling second place in this race. Stefan, this is your singling award. It's all right, his dad's not in the race. He knows he's the only EVERTS out there. Getting in amongst the back markers, this is when you've got to keep your concentration high. Make sure you don't get snarled up in them by mistake. Lap 13, unlucky for some. Well, it was unlucky for Joel SMETS, but he's still only 3 seconds behind JORGENSON. This battle is not over yet. JORGENSON, who has suffered so many knee, shoulder and ankle injuries in his career. He's really enjoying a trouble-free season, an unusually injury-free season in 2003, and it's paying dividends. Claudio Federici, 4th place for the Italian. He's adapted well to the 454-stroke Yamaha. And Kevin Strybos. A result for Kevin Strybos on this sort of going is a huge step forward for the young Belgian. We just know how good he is in sand. For him to get a top 6 result in these conditions is a real indication of his true prowess. And on the last lap, a sight we have seen before this season, Stefan EVERTS with time to acknowledge his supporters. This looks like being Grand Prix victory number 67 for number 72. He takes the checkered flag, and he's as excited as ever, as are his team. And number 30, Brian JORGENSON, a worthy second place. Mickael Rinaldi at every race these days in support of Stefan EVERTS. Joel SMETS finishes a somewhat demoralised third, I suspect, after the disappointment of not quite getting the better of Yogi. Mickael Rinaldi runs an enthusiastic team and runs it well. Stefan EVERTS gets the wins for them. He's got another. McFarlane getting the better on the last lap of Kenneth Gunderson. Stefan EVERTS, no one got the better of him. And as he said afterwards, he did that for Pit Byra. 15-point advantage now in the championship with just 2 rounds left. Could he conceivably tie it up before the series finishes?